I teach at many different schools. Mostly nowadays I teach at a school called Fuller Theological Seminary. So those are the places I work. I have been studying monasticism in one form or another since I was 15 years old. No, 17 years old. My wife and I went to a movie when I was young, and it was all about Francis of Assisi. And we were both very inspired by this movie and the life of this man. And so when my wife and I got married, we made a commitment to simplicity. Instead of making a vow of chastity, we made a vow of simplicity and purity as well. And so after that, then we learned more about monastic life, and then in like 1982, we wrote a rule of life for ourselves, and then began exploring that, and I began studying more and more, and got my doctorate degree in Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley in Christian spirituality. And then we moved to this small town in Colorado to help take care of my wife's parents, because she was an only child, and we must take care of her parents. And so in taking care of them, there's this idea, well, what do I do in a very small town with a PhD in Christian spirituality? There's no jobs. And so we got to thinking, and I prayed, and I said, no, what I want to do with my life, I want to pray, and I want to study. I love to study. And I like manual labor. I've been a construction worker and a house painter and things like that. So, but then I like people, and I like ministering to people. So I said, that's what I want to do when I move to this small town. And my wife looked at me and she said, well, Evan, you know, that looks like the Benedictine rule. Maybe you want to be a monk. And so when your wife tells you that you should be a monk, then you wonder about this. But we did. We ultimately decided that this kind of a rhythm of life is what we wanted to try and do. And so, I mean, we could not join an order. We were in this small town. They were taking care of her parents. And so, for the past 20 years, we have been exploring this kind of rhythm of life in our own little environment in Colorado. But we have developed many relationships over the years with monasteries, both old and then these new groups of young people all around the world who are exploring things like monasticism. And so that has been my interest, and I more and more and more find myself passionately studying these issues. And so then when Mike Galera, have you met Mike? Yeah. You have met Mike? Okay, most of you have met. Okay, so when Mike Galera started this program here, and he said there's 5, I think, the biblical, theological, what are so you have these modules, and then he said, how about a module on early African monasticism? Because much of the 4th century in Africa, there was a great rise in monasticism. So why don't we have a module on early African monasticism? And why don't you go ahead and teach it, Evan? And I said, yes, I would like that. So that's how that started. Does that make sense? Any questions so far? No? Okay. So then, what we will do, I think I will do this. I'm stepping out of the camera. What we're going to do is break the subject up. I will cover some of these subjects more than others. The idea is, the aim of the course is that in these lectures, I am giving you a brief introductory survey, just an introduction to the literature, and then a survey of some of the primary themes that developed in the early history of African monasticism. However, then the idea is that over the next 13 weeks, then you will go deeper and you will be actually reading the literature of early African monasticism. You will read the life of Antony. I think maybe you've already read a little bit out of the life of Antony, is that correct? But you'll be reading the letters of Antony this time. I think you read a little bit of the life, but I've got you reading more of the letters. You'll be reading Pachomius, you'll be reading John Cassian, you'll be reading Evagrius Pontus, so you'll be reading examples of all of this literature in history, and we will go much deeper into the questions about that literature. But this week, I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to the literature and a coverage of some of the important themes. Okay? Now, the other thing that I will do, I think, is I don't know you well enough, so you have to help me. God has taught me not to teach subjects, but to teach people. And what that means is I need to know what you are interested in. So your questions are very important to me. I can rattle on about all kinds of the nuances between the Origenists and the Anthropomorphites, and some of these debates or different styles of doing monastic life. But what you might really want to know is how to practice asceticism or something like that. And I need to know what you're interested in. So make sure and raise your hand and ask questions. Because I will not know what to teach you unless I know what you're interested in learning. Make sense? Okay? That's important to me. So I will vary my lecture. This is an outline. It is not, it's not in stone. So, with that, then tonight, in what time we have, is there a clock? No. Okay, I don't have to keep this here.
What time does the evening go on to?
I think we go till 9 o'clock, is that correct? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Tomorrow we have 3 different sessions. Or we have a morning and an afternoon session. That's 2. I think one goes from 10 o'clock until 12 o'clock. Is that correct? Oh, I think you published it.
No, I'm not doing that on Facebook.
I think it's on Facebook. Oh. I think Jos will be back. But I think it is...
He didn't say even what time you will start today until I asked him yesterday.
Oh, okay. I think it is from 10 o'clock until tomorrow. I think it's from 10 until 12 or something, or 1, and then until 5 or 6. I think something like that. And then Friday, it's only the afternoon because I think he has church here in the morning. But then Saturday, it will be another all day. Another 2 sessions on Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon. Make sense? Okay. Okay. with that, then I want to begin by talking about the origins of African monasticism. Early forms and preliminary definition. I want to talk just about what is monasticism, what did it look like in the very beginning, where did it come from? And so the first point I want to say is that I want to go back into the Bible and tell you, where did monasticism come from in the very, very beginning? And we actually have, in the Scripture, we have models or images or expressions that are monastic-like, similar to monasticism. And they give us hints of what God is trying to do with people. That God not just has a people, but God also gives room, gives permission, gives space for specialized groups of people to make a consecration of themselves to God in a particular kind of way. Okay? Is this okay? Okay.
في مدارس موسيقية في الكتاب المقدس موجودة وفي البوذية وفي اليهودية، لكن دي مدارس موسيقية ما نقدرش عليها الرهبنة. لأن الرهبنة مرتبطة بالبدرية. كل الموسيقى مدارس موسيقية قبل كده كان فيها زيجة، فيها ارتباط. زي الصوفية في الإسلام، يختلي فترة ويرجع.
He's saying that there is a difference between monasticism and the other Sophia schools.
There's a difference between monasticism and what?
Sufis in Islam and other schools in Jewish culture or Buddhic cultures.
Other what cultures?
Buddha.
Yes, in other religions. In other religions, there is a monastic expressions in many world religions. Is that what you're thinking of?
حتى الأسيميين كانوا سلالة كهنوتية، فكان لازم يحافظوا على النسل الكهنوتي.
He says that in Jewish culture the essence came from priesthood line, so they had to keep it pure. So different from our monasticism, because our Christian monasticism depend on how to be married and was limited in our theology.
So Christian monasticism has a different kind of expression than some of the other forms of religious life.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and we could get into that. I also teach world religions and a Buddhist Sangha or a Hindu ashram or a Sufi group. They're all different, unique kinds of expressions. Though they have some similarities with Christian monasticism, they're distinctive because of the very nature of their own religion. So, but in this class, we're going to talk about Christian monasticism, particularly early African Christian monasticism. Make sense? Okay? Mm-hmm. So, and where does this come from? The roots of this come from the Bible itself. In the Old Testament, particularly in Numbers chapter 6, we read about a group called the Nazarites. And these were a group of people who didn't cut their hair, they couldn't drink wine, they had special requirements. Why did they have these special requirements? They were a people that were set apart, special way for the service of God. Now, unfortunately, Numbers 6 and the rest of the Bible doesn't tell us very much about what the Nazarites did and what their purpose or function was. But what we do know is that God seemed to set apart a special people. He gave permission for these people to live a consecrated life, a life that's set apart in a special way for God. Okay? And similarly, you will not, it's not common in the Bible, but have you ever heard of the Rechabites? Yeah, only a couple of times. You read about the Rechabites in Judges chapter 4, verse 17 through 22, 1 Chronicles 2:55, 1 Kings 10:15, and Jeremiah 35:6. You get this idea, and it's in my notes here. You get this idea of these people, these Rechabites, who restricted their lifestyle. They were intentionally nomadic. They did not have houses, and they chose this. They did not drink wine either. But it's clearly they were different than the Nazarites. They're a different group of people, and yet they made unique and distinct vows among themselves. And my guess, in my study of the Old Testament, my guess is that it may, and other scholars think this too, it may have to do with a memory of the Israelites as a wandering people, only trusting in God, absolutely dependent on it. So that's, there's not much written about it, it's mysterious, but it's there in the Old Testament, and we have to acknowledge that God seemed to permit and even respect these group of people who made a special commitment to God. Make sense? Okay. Another group, you read in the Bible, also in the Old Testament, about the schools of the prophets. And there's a lot more literature about that. And it never talks specifically about the lifestyle of the schools of the prophets. You only find them appearing here and there. You know there are groups, and you know that they seem to have a life together. You don't know what that lifestyle is, but I think it is fair to assume, given what we know before, that not only did these people have a common education, but they also had some element of lifestyle that was part of the education. Because this is a Hebrew world. This is not an American, Western university where they all line up in chairs and someone stands and talks. So it's a matter of a community and living and training. So a school of the prophets is going to have a lifestyle dimension to it as well. Make sense? So these are some Old Testament examples. In the intertestamental period, the period between the Old Testament and the New Testament, you have another couple of examples of things that border on monasticism. You have the Essenes, or some of you may know of the documents around Qumran, the Qumran scrolls, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Some of them are evidence of a group called the Essenes. And this was a community that separated themselves from most of the Jews in Israel at that time. They had a special community outside. They had vows. They had a period of probation and joining. They had their property in common. They restricted their life habits. Are we okay? So about food and celibacy and the dress they wore, and they avoided wealth. All of these things were common to the Essenes. And they had rhythms of silence and song, and they had an eschatological witness. They were looking forward to a time when God would restore Israel and they wanted to live into that future by the way they lived. I say this because, as a matter of fact, in Christian monasticism, in the early writings, you will find that monks and nuns, the idea is that we are living an angelic life. We are living into the future of what God would have us to be. And so there is an eschatological dimension to the monastic life. And some of that is similar to what we see even before Christianity in the Jewish Essenes. Okay? Now, another group that is also similar to, or a precursor to Christian monasticism, where there's some similarities, a guy named Philo of Alexandria, who was a Jew who lived in Alexandria, and he spoke of a group called the Therapeutae. Serapion? Okay. Philo of Alexandria spoke of a group called the Therapeutae. Therapeutae is just a Greek word meaning clean. And they wanted to, there's a group of Jews that wanted to live a clean life. And they also had a community in common and these sorts of things. So there were precursors to what we know of as Christian monasticism even before Christ. Make sense? Just socially, there were some examples that were similar enough. But what happens when we get to the New Testament? What do we find when we pick up our Christian Bible? Well, one thing we see is we see Jesus and his disciples. What do we find with Jesus and his disciples? Well, they're not exactly Essenes. Jesus and his followers were not Essenes. They did not leave and form a separate community out there. But they were not zealots. They were not political zealots because they were not actively trying to form a rebellion. But they weren't Pharisees because they were not part of the Jewish sect. They were this unique group of people. Who were they? And even those who were following Jesus didn't really know what Jesus was trying to do, did they? But Jesus demanded everything of them, didn't he? He demanded them to leave their father and mother and come. And when the rich young ruler came and said, I want to follow you, he said, sell everything and give to the poor. Come and follow me. And then once he had a group of followers, and he wanted them to minister, and he wanted them to serve in the way he served, what did he tell them? He told them in Matthew 10, and in Mark 6, and in Luke 9 and 10, when Jesus sent out his followers to minister in the villages surrounding them, he gave them an outline of their way of life. He identified their mission. He said, heal, proclaim, deliver. And he gave them instructions regarding their possessions. No two tunics. Don't carry money with you. Don't have your accessories, your bag. And then he gave them instructions about how they should handle their relationships. When you go into a town, say peace on this house, and he gives them these instructions. In the context of Jesus' own culture, they would have understood Jesus to be supplying his followers with an informal, what we would today call a rule of life. Now this is not like a written rule of life, but it's an informal set of guidelines that govern how they live as followers of Jesus. They're following the Jesus way. And in order to follow the Jesus way, you do what he does. And he instructs them in this kind of order if they're going to live his kind of ministry. Okay? So Jesus is starting. He doesn't do this with everybody. You know that when he heals the man in the Gadarene demoniac, he does not demand that the Gadarene demoniac have only 2 tunics and come and follow and leave everything. He doesn't ask that of that person. But of his followers who came close, and if we're going to go imitate his ministry, he gives them special regulations, a rule of life. Okay? Then when you go further in the New Testament, those people after Jesus dies and rises again, and then the Holy Spirit comes on people, and then the church is empowered to reach the world. How do the leaders of the church live? Well, when you look at Paul, when you look at the apostles who go and are sent and who plant churches and who do missions and church, what do you find? You find that most of them are not married. You find that most of them work only when they need to work. You find that they have intentional life of simplicity and hardship and these sorts of things. They seem to be following many of the same instructions that Jesus gave his followers in Matthew 10 and elsewhere. Does that make sense? And so what you see is a continuation of the monastic way of life. In the West, we would call them friars. They're not cloistered monks in a monastery. They are friars who live a monastic life, going out and doing missions. Do you know what I mean?
It's like schools and the hospitals and things like this.
Yeah, this kind of thing, where you're active but living a vowed life. And these are Jesus' apostles. Even after Jesus died, they had their own special way of life. And Paul articulates this on more than one occasion, that he takes on special commitments. Are you part of the class? Oh, okay. The other thing you find in the New Testament, when you move from the apostolic teams, what I will call apostolic teams, and their style of life, you also have descriptions in 1 Timothy 5 and 6 and elsewhere of widows and the care of widows. And in the description of the care of widows, you find that these are a special group of people who, both because of their age and their being single, they get special treatment by the church. But not only do they get special treatment by the church, but they have a special obligation. An obligation to serve the church through prayer and through care. And it is actually through the widows, and then later through those who are not necessarily old, but who are still single, what we will call virgins. That is some of the origins that we will see of later monastic life. So even in the Christian scriptures, you find these precursors of monastic life. It's not laid out in a specific kind of way like you might find Benedict doing or Pachomius or something like that. But still you have hints that all the way through, even in the Christian scriptures, that God not only has a great number of just followers, but God gives permission for some people to make special commitments in a special kind of way. And furthermore, that those special kind of ways have various expressions. The widows have one way of expressing that vowed, that consecrated life. The apostolic teams have another way of expressing that consecrated life. Okay? Though the life is still consecrated, both Paul, the Apostle Paul, and the widow were both unmarried and making a special commitment to God, but they lived out that commitment in different ways in each of their own lives. Okay. So much for the scriptures then. Early post-apostolic expressions. I just want to give a little bit of brief comments from some early literature on the sense that from very early on, the Christians have thought of both lay life, ordinary Christian living, and those who make special consecrations. Only I'm not simply speaking of priestly consecration, but monastic consecration. The priestly difference is like what you find in Acts chapter 5, 6, where there's this discussion, and then we will commit ourselves to the Word of God and prayer. And there's a care for the church that makes a designation between deacons and priests and some of that sort of thing, where they have authority over the congregation. But then you also have these special kinds of commitments that are apostolic or that are widows, which is a different kind of consecration. There's similarities and there's differences. And you'll see this all the way through the history of the church. For example, in the Didache, which is a 2nd century piece of literature, the book of Didache says, "For if thou canst bear the whole yoke of the Lord, you will be perfect. But if you can't, do what you can. And concerning food, bear what you can, but keep strictly from that which is offered to idols, for it's the worship of dead gods." The important thing I want you to see in this literature is that the Didache recognize that some people have an empowering from God, an anointing, some charism, so that they can take a different step. If you can bear the whole yoke of the Lord, if you can be, if you can, like the rich young ruler, go ahead and sell all. If you can bear the whole yoke of the Lord and be unmarried, then go ahead. Jesus talks about there being eunuchs, but there being few. There are some who are going to have this calling. And if you got it, do it. But if you can't, do what you can. Do whatever you can to be as sold out. That does not mean that one is necessarily better than. It means that God gives each of us have a commitment of holiness within our own station, within our own calling from God. Are you with me? Okay, any questions at this point? Yes, Cindy.
Commitments of your last phrase, commitments of, you said.
Things like celibacy or poverty, serious commitments that would separate that person's life from the ordinary, working, married Christian. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Let's keep going. The persistence of the order of widows. I mentioned widows in 1 Timothy. Now, we move to Polycarp, again, 2nd century, in his epistle to the Philippians. He says, "Let us teach the widows to be discreet in the faith of the Lord, praying ceaselessly for all men, being far from all slander, evil speaking," and so on and so forth. And he gives instructions for the order of widows. And so that by the time you have the 2nd century here, you have a context of an identifiable group known in the 2nd century as it was called the tagma, the order of widows. Because you have in the way that Polycarp writes his letter, he gives instruction to ourselves, to wives, to widows, to deacons, to younger men, to virgins and presbyters. So you see in Polycarp's writing, he understands these as all unique categories of Christians in the church. Yes?
When he's speaking about widows, does he mean males and females or females only?
At this point in time, there is a growth. Originally, widows primarily referred to women only. But then when you move to the term virgin, parthenos is the Greek word. Parthenos actually does not mean woman, virgin. It means any celibate human being. And there's this gradual shift over those centuries from largely related to women to both men and women. Right in this period, there's a gradual shift of that meaning of the term.
So when Polycarp talks about widows, he means
I think he means women. I think he means women. When he says virgins, I think he's beginning to he's opening that door. Another thing you will find in Syria and Palestine, you also find the persistence of the apostolic orders. You have prophets mentioned in the Didache, and then in Syria and Palestine, you have groups of people who are traveling, preaching, and still living a very simple, very ascetic life, even as they travel and speak. And so you find this persistence of the very same kind of thing Jesus and his followers did, going from city to city, living very simply, not having a home, and preaching the gospel. This apostolic, monastic kind of life. The first example of African mention of this, in a specifically African writer writing about this, we find in Tertullian. And Tertullian wrote this essay on the veiling of virgins. And you don't have a lot of details about who the virgins were, but you knew of them. I mean, the fact that he writes a separate essay on the veiling of virgins, you have a recognition of a group of people, women and men, but he's talking primarily about women, who take on veils, who have special ceremonies and special clothing to identify their own consecration to Christ. You see? And there's a discussion about that. The important thing I want you to recognize,
اوكي بالنسبه للحاجه الاولانيه اللي هي اللي كنا متفقين معاك، الرهبنه وسيله وليس هدف.
He's talking about that monasticism is.
وسيله وليس هدف.
louder.
He's talking about that monasticism like it's a way to reach something. It's not about a goal. It's a way that to reach people.
طريق الهدف هو المسيح نفسه.
It's a thing
The
of
goal of Jesus.
monasticism, not a target in itself, but it's a way to reach Christ.
Yes, yes.
هي طريق توبه. الرهبنه كان اساس طريق توبه.
A way of repentance and see how am I mistakes and went away in God. So I want to return to my real life, to Him.
Yeah, and I would say from this literature, it is not only a way of reaching Christ, it is also a way of living the gospel of Christ. Christ invites the rich young ruler to a new life. Christ invites the apostles to come, follow me and go and follow my life of ministry. He invites the widows to pray on behalf of the church. So it is both a way into Christ and it's a way through Christ to minister and express the life of Christ. Make sense? Okay.
It's interesting that reading the book, I didn't get a sense of that. Perhaps because she's a historian and not a theologian.
He was not a monk.
Huh?
He was not a monk.
Yeah. Another expression, I'm just giving you a sweep of all of the different expressions. And another one is the domestic ascetic movement. The example in Africa is Justa or Justinia. Do you know what Justinia? Okay, that's okay. She first lived a monastic life in her home. So, living with her father and decides, I am going to fast, I'm going to pray.
I'm not
Justine. Just say the name.
This is Steve.
Justina? Yeah. She prayed 7 times a day, all of these different things. And then later on she became an abbot of a convent in Carthage. And I think outside of Africa, the classic example of this to me is a woman named Macrina in Turkey. Basil of Caesarea was her brother. And she started a monastery in her own home. Oh, about Basil of Syria.
You can't She was their elder sister.
Yes.
Serious and Gregorius.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And so, but the monastery, you have to understand, the monastery began not by Basil, but by Macrina. And it was really something that was just a development of what went on in their home. It started really out of a group of people at home who wanted to devote themselves to Christ more seriously. So they went into the living room and they prayed. Yes.
So this was before an actual sort of formalized monastery in Africa.
Yes.
But you're talking about Turkey, and so what is the timeline? Just
Well, you're right.
tell me the timeline.
You're right in the same era of time. All of this is happening right around the same time.
Which
4th
is?
century, late 4th century. Well, into the 4th century. I put dates in your book, in your notes. Justinia is 300. Macrina is more like 325.
Okay.
And further. Again, in Syria, in the 3rd century, you had, and yet present, there's evidence of them being present in the 4th century. There's a group called the Sons and Daughters of the Covenant. And the example, a man by the name of Afahat is the example out of this. And what they did was it would be a monastery within a church. So this is great. We have a priest, a church priest and a monk. So I forget your name again. I'm sorry.
Meta.
Yeah. Okay. So Father Meta would have a church, and that some people would want to be baptized in this church, and so Sema. Okay, Sema would be baptized in Father Meta's church and just make an ordinary commitment to Christ. But at the same he would be baptized in the same church, but he would make a commitment not only just to be at Christ, but he would make a commitment to celibacy. But he would not go and leave and be in a monastery somewhere. He would be a part of the church, but there would be a group of people in this church who would make this special commitment. And they were just part of the church.
Small monastery. Like a small monastery.
Yeah, only they might not even live in the same building. They would just be a group of people that made this commitment that were part of the church. There would be celibate people in the church, and there would be non-celibate people in the church.
We have,
What?
we have examples of that until that day, until this day. We have persons we know who have taken that vow to not marry, really, and they live with us. And we know that they will not marry. And they live their ordinary life. They go to work and pray and live with us. They just live.
So it's Samek?
Same.
Samek says, I'm going to repeat for the movie. Samek says that there are examples that are alive today of people who actually do this within the Coptic Church, who make commitments within the church to be celibate and to live a devoted life to Christ without ever joining a monastery. Are there many of these? This is new to me.
Not very many, I guess.
Not so many.
Not so many? Okay.
Does it exist?
But it exists. Do you have one in your church? Mata?
Yes, they are very old. So when for example, someone 60 or 70 years old and then his mother his wife died and so on, so he can dedicate it to the service of the church and he will not pay again. He's very old.
Okay, so there are some, but some are very old. Do you know any young people doing this?
I know one.
One or two? Yes.
النقطة كانت ظهور بيوت البنات، بيوت العذارى. دي ظهرت قبل الأنبا أنطونيوس، كانت موجودة لأن البنات ما كانش ممكن يطلعوا الجبال والصحاري. الولاد لما كانوا يعيشوا في الصحاري كانوا عايشين في مغاير وأماكن متفرقة. كانت لسه شكل البيت ما ظهرش للولاد. فإسبقية بيوت العذارى لأن هم كانوا موجودين في تجمعات داخل المدينة. لكن بعد كده الشكل الرهباني والشكل الديني ظهر بعد الأمر الأنطونيوس. لأن الولاد كانوا يعيشوا في الصحاري.
Before Saint Anthony of Egypt, before he went to the desert and started monasticism in the desert, he said that females were creating some sort of inside the towns, smaller houses for grouping themselves and playing and so on and devotion to that, not being able to go to the desert and start something new.
Yes, I mean, in the life of Antony, when you read the life of Antony, it says that he took his sister and he left her in the care of well-known virgins.
In a convent.
In a convent, yes. And so if he's going to leave his sister in a well-known convent, there must have been monasteries before Antony. Same thing, when Antony begins his life, he goes to this man and learns this, he goes to this man and learns that, he goes to this man and learns something different. There must have been a network of village holy men from which Antony learned his things. Antony was clearly not the first monk. He was not the father of monasticism in the sense of the very first one. What was pioneering about what Antony did was that he went far into the desert. That was the unique contribution of Antony. There were people who were withdrawing from ordinary life, but they hadn't withdrawn deep into the desert. You see what I mean? There's a difference, and we'll get into this in another lecture.
هي النقطة إن مفيش أسبقية للبنات على الولاد في الحروب الداخلية. لأن في ناس بتخلط بيقولوا لا طب دول البنات الأول. لا هي البنات كانوا بيتحطوا في البيوت لكن برضه كان الولاد بيخرجوا الصحراء يعني.
Some people say that the women that actually goes to the lives as long before the wars and the months.
I think so, yes.
Some people say this.
Yes, I think, like I say, widows, virgins, then men and women virgins, then monasteries. I think this is the way it goes.